Shabbat Shalom, everyone, and good Shabbos.
Shabbat Shalom and good Shabbos.
There's Scott. It is Erev Shabbat in Huntington, and it was an absolutely stunningly beautiful day here today. I was looking out my window and watching, and there were lots of birds, and a couple of bees flew by the window and said hello. And I thought something about, I was watching the bees and I'm thinking, there's no way you should be able to fly. You're bottom heavy. You've got small wings. You've got all these things, but nobody told the bee that. And so the bee flies, and watching the bees and the birds and looking at the trees. So it was an absolutely beautiful spring day here in Huntington, which means it's going to be a phenomenal Shabbat for us. All right. Now that the weather report is done, we can start with Kabbalat Shabbat. Like I said, we have Scott here right now, and he's going to bench licht for us. He's going to light the Shabbos candles.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel Shabbat.
Well done. Well done. All right, we're gonna jazz things up a little bit tonight. And we're going to do the reading on page 8. On page 8. And if you want, you can read this with me, or you could read it silently to yourself. I begin with a prayer of gratitude for all that is holy in my life. God needs no words, no English or Hebrew, no semantics, no services. But I need them. Through prayer, I can sense my inner strength, my inner purpose, my inner joy, my capacity to love. As I reach upward in prayer, I sense that these qualities in my Creator. To love God is to love each other, to work to make our lives better. To love God is to love the world God created, and the work to perfect it. To love God is to love dreams of peace and joy that illumine all of us, and to bring that vision to life. All right, Kabbalat Shabbat is welcoming the Shabbat after spending a week of being creative, of pursuing things. On Shabbat, we take it easy. We have a built-in day of rest built into our tradition, and it's a wonderful, wonderful day. And so let's continue easing our way in Shabbat with Lecha Dodi. And we've been singing verses 1, 2, and 3, and 8 and 9. And so let's continue that. And here we go. Lecha dodi likrat kala penei Shabbat nikabela. Lecha dodi likrat kala penei Shabbat nikabela. Shamor v'zachor b'dibor echad, hishmi'anu el hamiuchad, Adonai echad, u'shmo echad, l'shem u'tiferet v'litila, lecha dodi likrat kala, penei Shabbat nikabela, likrat Shabbat lechu v'nelcha, Ki mekor ha-bracha, merosh mikedem nesucha, sof ma'aseh b'machshava tchila, lecha dodi likrat kala, penei Shabbat nikabela, mikdash melech ir melucha, kumitze'i mitoch hafecha, rav lahak shevet, Be'emecha bacha, v'hu yachamo l'alaichem la, lecha dodi likrat kala, penei Shabbat nikabela, yamid u'smol tifrotzi, V'et Adonai taritzi al yad ish ben partzi v'nismecha v'nagila lecha dodi likrat kala Pnei Shabbat nikabela Bohi b'shalom ateret bala Gam b'simcha uvsohala Toch emunei am segula Boi chala Lecha dodi likrat kala Pnei Shabbat nikabela. All right, brought to us from the mystics in Svat, Lecha Dodi. Wonderful, wonderful, I don't know what to call it. It's not really a prayer. It's not really a hymn. Call it a poem, perhaps. A poem by Shlomo Halevi Alkabates, one of the mystics of Tzfat. All right, we're going to turn the page to 22 for some verses from Psalm 92, the Psalm for Shabbat. A song for Shabbat. It is good to praise Adonai, to sing hymns to your name, O Most High, to proclaim your steadfast love at daybreak, your faithfulness each night, with a 10-stringed harp, with voice and lyre together. You have gladdened me by your deeds, Adonai. I shout for joy at your handiwork. How great are your works, Adonai, how very subtle your designs. A brute cannot know, a fool cannot understand this. And in the indented Hebrew, Tzadikata yifrach ke'erez balvanon yisge shetulim beveit Adonai bechatzrot Eloheinu yafrichu. O Jenuvun b'seva Deshenim v'ra'ananim Yihiyu lehagid Ki yashar Adonai Tzuri v'lo avlatabo. Page 24, Shalom Alechem, welcoming the angels who come to spend Shabbat with us. And although the rabbis of the Talmud weren't necessarily mystic in the way we might think of mystics, they believed, or many of them believed, in the heavenly host, that there were angels who traveled around the universe, and they were messengers of God or workers for God. They have each classification of angel has its own job, as it were. For example, the seraphim are kind of messengers, and they speed from place with holy zeal, and then they burn up once they've completed their task. The Kruvim are guardians, right? A cherub are not the cute little Rubenesque kind of figures that you see in Renaissance art, but they are mighty, usually portrayed with large swords, as is the angel that guards the tree of life in the Garden of Eden. So, but anyway, two angels come to spend Shabbat with us, and we'll welcome them on page 24 with Shalom Aleichem. Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Hasharet, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech, Malachei Amlachim HaKadosh, Baruch Hu. Boachem l'shalom, malachei hashalom, malachei elyon. Mihi melech, malachei amlachim hakadosh, baruch hu. Baruchuni l'shalom, Malachei HaShalom, Malachei Elyon. Mi melech Malachei Amlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Tzeitchem l'shalom, Malachei HaShalom, Malachei Elyon. Mi melech Malachei Amlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. All right. We've entered into the holy realm of Shabbat, our day of rest. We've welcomed Shabbat officially. And so now we'll continue with Arvit l'Shabbat, the evening service for Shabbat, page 145, Chatzi Kaddish. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah, Be'almad yivrach chirutei v'yamlik malchutei, B'chayechon u'v'yomechon u'v'chayedecho Beit Yisrael, Ba'gala u'v'zman kariv v'yimeru amen. Yehi shmei Rabbah mevorach le'olam u'lamei amaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh v'yitadar v'yitalev v'yithalal shmei dekudesha b'richu leila min kol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechemata dahamiran v'yama v'yimeru amen. Baruch Hu is found on page 146. Baruch Hu et Adonai HaMevorach. Baruch Adonai HaMevorach le'olam va'ed. Let's read together on 147. Adonai, your majesty is proclaimed by the marvels of earth and sky. Sun, moon, and stars testify to your power and wisdom. Day follows day in endless succession, and the years vanish, but your sovereignty endures. Though all things pass, let not your glory depart from us. Help us to become co-workers with you, and endow our fleeting days with abiding worth. Baruch atah Adonai hama'ariv aravim. Top of page 148. Ahavat olam Beit Yisrael amcha ahavta Torah u'mitzvot chukim u'mishpatim otanu limadeta al kein Adonai Eloheinu b'shochveinu uvkumeinu nasiach bechukecha v'nismach b'divrei Toratecha u'v'mitzvotecha le'olam va'ed ki hem chayenu v'yorech yameinu v'yorech yameinu u'vehem negeh yomam v'layla yomam v'layla ve'avatecha al tasher mimenu li'olamim Baruch atah Adonai Ohev Amo Yisrael. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. V'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol levavcha u'b'chol nafshecha u'b'chol meodecha v'hayu hadvarim ha'ele asher anochi mitzavecha hayom ha'levavecha v'shinantam levanecha v'dibarta bam v'shivtecha b'veitecha ובלכתך בדרך, ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם להיות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם. And let's read together on 151. We worship the power that unites the universe, a promise of harmony for all. Yet that oneness eludes our grasp as imperfection and evil abound. Before our eyes, there is a vision of perfection, order, and goodness. There is evil enough to break the heart, and there is good enough to exalt the soul. When will redemption come? When we grant everyone what we claim for ourselves. Long ago, we escaped the tyranny of Egypt. Our people saw the power of the Most High. We learned God's presence redeems time and event, so we celebrate this power that makes for freedom. Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai, mi kamocha nehedar ba'kodesh, nora tehilot oseh feleh. Malchutecha ra'u vanecha, bokeyem lifnei Moshe, Zeli anu v'yamru, Adonai yimloch leolam va'ed, v'nehemar kifad Adonai et Yaakov, ugalo miyad chazak mimenu, Baruch atah Adonai, Ga'al Yisrael. Top of page 153. Ashkiveinu Adonai Eloheinu l'shalom, v'ha'amideinu shomreinu l'chaim. Ashkiveinu Adonai Eloheinu l'shalom, v'ha'amideinu shomreinu l'chaim. Let's read together on 153. Give us a place to rest, O God. Shelter us in the long, soft evening shadows of your truth. Your true protection and safety. In your presence we find love and acceptance. Watch over us as we go forth. Prepare for us as we return. Spread over us your shelter of peace, over all we love, over our Jerusalem and yours. Baruch atah Adonai, haporei sukat shalom aleinu, v'al kol amo Yisrael, v'al Yerushalayim. Page 154. It is Vishamru, verses from the book of Shemot, from the book of Exodus. It is not Shabbat if we don't hear Vishamru a couple of times. Well, at least I think that it's not Shabbat if we don't hear Vishamru a couple of times. Top of page 154. Vishamru v'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat, la'asot et ha-Shabbat ledorotam berit olam. Vishamru v'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat, la'asot et ha-Shabbat ledorotam berit olam. Beini uvein b'nei Yisrael, oti li'olam. V'shamru v'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. כי 6 ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ, ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. וביום השביעי שבת ויהי נפש, שבת ויהי נפש, שבת ויהי נפש, ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. All right, we are at the Amidah, the central prayer of all of our prayer services. And we're going to begin on 155 and chant 155, 156, and 157 together. And then we'll continue silently on our own all the way through the end on 167. And you can join along in the chanting. You can read the Hebrew or the English if you want, or you can offer up your own personal prayer at this time. But we'll begin together on 155. Adonai sefatai tiftach, ufi yagi tehilatecha. Adonai sefatai tiftach, ufi yagi tehilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips, that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu, Elohei Avotenu v'Imotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor, Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, V'konei HaKol, V'zocher Chasdei Avot V'imahot, Umevi Goel Livnei B'neihem, Leman Shemo B'Ahava, Melech Ozer Umoshia Umagen, Baruch Atah Adonai, Magen Avraham, V'Ezrat Sarah, Atah Gibor Le'olam Adonai, Mechaye Metim Atah Rab L'Hoshia, Morid Hatahal, Mechalkel Chaim Bechesed, Mechaye Metim Berachamim Rabim, Sohomech Noflim Verofech Oholim, Umatir Hasurim, Umekahayem Emunato, Lishenei Afar, Michamocha Baal Givorot, Umido Melach, Melech Memit, Umechahayeh, Umatzmiach Yeshua, V'ne'eman ata l'chayot metim, Baruch atah Adonai, Mechayeh hametim. you're still completing your Amidah, please continue at your own pace. We're going to continue on page 160. May these hours of rest and renewal open our hearts to joy and our minds to truth. May all who struggle find rest on this day. May all who suffer find solace. May all who hurt find healing on this day. May all who despair find purpose. May all who hunger find fulfillment on this day. And may we all live in such a way that this day fulfill its promise. Baruch atah Adonai mekadesh HaShabbat. A little bit of hoda'ah, a little bit of gratitude this week. I have always have lots to be grateful for. Mom and Cliff were here for Mother's Day, and they made it back to home safely, and so I'm grateful for that. I'm also grateful for their visit and all the joy that they bring to us when they come to visit. And I'm grateful for a lot of things. Too many to count. But let's just say it was a good week. It was a good week. And so page 163, let's read together. For the good in us, which calls us to a better life, we give thanks. For the strength to improve the world with our hearts and our hands, we offer praise. For the desire in us, which leads us to work for peace, we are grateful. For life and nature, harmony and beauty, for the hope of tomorrow, all praise the source of being. And we'll close out with Shalom Rav, prayer for peace. And if there's ever a time we need peace, it's now, with all the dissension going around and what's happening in Israel. A big prayer for peace. Right? Give us all peace. Shalom Rav. Shalom Rahav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rahav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Ki atahu melech adon lechol hashalom. Ki atahu melech adon lechol hashalom. Shalom Rahav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rahav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. V'tov benecha levarech et amcha Yisrael bechol leit uvechol sha'a bishlomecha. Shalom Rahav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rahav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Tasim Leolam. Tasim Leolam. All right. 253. I'm going to jump ahead to 253. And the Misha Berach. And so a prayer for healing. Prayer to remind us that there are people that we need to reach out to. Prayer to remind us that we need to take care of each other. The Misha Berach, page 253. Misha Berach Avoteinu Mikor habracha Lihimotenu. May the source of strength, who bless the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. Misheberach Imotenu Mekor habracha liavotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen. We continue with the prayers for our community. First for our congregation, our country, and then for Medinat Yisrael. Source of all being, may the children of this community learn these passions from us: love of Torah, devotion and prayer, and support of the needy. May we guide with integrity, and may our leadership be in your service. May those who teach and nourish us be blessed with satisfaction, and may we appreciate their time and their devotion. Bless us with the fruits of wisdom and understanding, and may our efforts bring fulfillment and joy. Baruch atah Adonai, she'otecha levadcha b'yirah na'avod. Thus says Adonai, this is what I desire, to unlock the fetters of wickedness and to untie the cords of lawlessness, to let the oppressed go free, to break off every yoke. Share your bread with the hungry and take the wretched poor into your home. When you see the naked, give clothing, and do not ignore your own kin. If you banish the yoke from your midst, the menacing hand, the evil speech, if you offer compassion to the hungry and satisfy the famished creature, then your light shall shine in darkness. Before we get to the prayer for Israel, I want to read a statement from the United Synagogue of Conservative Judaism, which is the kind of the umbrella organization for conservative Judaism, and it includes all conservative congregations, and Masorti, which is the Hebrew word for the conservative congregations in Israel, also part of the RA, the Rabbinical Assembly, and they issued the following statement. We are deeply disturbed as we see the rocket fire directed at Israel that has severely impacted civilian populations. The increased military capabilities of Hamas based in Gaza are particularly concerning, and we recognize Israel's right to defend itself. We are also gravely troubled by the religious and nationalist-based violence that has erupted between Jews and Arabs in various locales across Israel. We are pained by the violence, fear, and loss of innocent life in the region. We stand with our siblings in Israel, pray for the safety of the Israeli security and rescue forces, for full healing for all who are injured, and offer comfort to the families of those who have died. We are mindful of our Masorti communities, our clergy, and our leaders impacted by these events, and all who are providing so much support to those affected. We call on our members to join the public plea for true peace in Israel and joy for all its inhabitants. As we are taught in Psalm 122, pray for the well-being of Jerusalem. May those who love you be at peace. May there be well-being within your ramparts, peace in your citadels. And we'll find words from Psalm 122 on the top of page 259. Sha'alu shalom Yerushalayim, yish layu ohavayich. Pray for the peace of Jerusalem, and may those who love you prosper. Avinu Shabashamayim, Sur Yisrael v'go'alo, Barech et Medinat Yisrael, Reshit Smichat Gulatenu, Hagen Aleha Bi'avrat Chasdecha, Ufros Aleha Sukat Shlomecha, Ushlach Orcha V'amitecha L'Orasheha, Soreha V'yoetzeha, V'takneim Be'etza Tova Milfanecha, V'natata Shalom Ba'aretz, V'simchat Olam Liyoshveha, V'nomar, Amen. O Heavenly One, Protector and Redeemer of Israel, bless the state of Israel, which marks the dawning of hope for all who seek peace. Shield it beneath the wings of your love. Spread over it the canopy of your peace. Send your light and truth to all who lead and advise, guiding them with your good counsel. establish peace in the land and fullness of joy for all who dwell there. Amen. All right, friends, Shabbat Shalom and good Shabbos. This week, we start a new book of the Torah, right? Last week, we finished up the book of Leviticus with all of its rules and all of its laws and all of the stuff that, I used to consider flyover material, but now I find much more interesting. But this week, we begin Bamidbar, which literally means in the wilderness. Some will translate it in the desert. In English, it's translated as Numbers. And it begins with God commanding Moshe to take a census, right? And that's where it gets the name, the Book of Numbers, right? For us, it's not about, the census isn't the big thing. It's an important thing, but it's not the main thing, right? It's the census is to take place on the on the first day of the second month of the second year. And this is 1 month after the book of Shemot ends. So literally, we're connecting the book of Shemot and Bamidbar. And the census is for all males over the age of 20. Now, it's an interesting census, right? If you want to take a census, you want to take it for everybody. But they came up with the number 603,550. And this excludes the Levites, as they are responsible for the sanctuary and the rituals. And they're commanded to camp around the sanctuary at all times and to assist Aharon. So the reason we have this census is so that Moshe and Aharon and the other leaders can get an idea of how many able-bodied men there are, because after all, they're going to need to field an army. They're going to need to conquer the land of Canaan, and so they need to know how many men will they have available. And it's just a little over 603,000. And what's interesting is by time scholars have factored in the number of women and probably children and people over the age of, under the age of 20, that they look at the numbers maybe somewhere around 2 million people who left Egypt. And I think that is kind of an inflated number, because I don't think there were 2 million people in the region at the time, but that's okay. That's okay. I'm not worried about the numerical veracity, but they have a large enough group that they will be able to field an army. And then Moshe does a secondary count, and this time he counts the Levites from 1 month old all the way up till the end, and he comes up with 22,000. So there were 22,000 Levites. And then the number of firstborn males among Bnei Yisrael came in at 22,273. So there were more firstborn males than Levites for Bnei Yisrael. And so what Moshe does is he imposes a 5 shekel tax on these firstborn males, which frees them from the duties of having to help the Kohanim, right? Because all the firstborn, whether it's human, whether it's animal, whether it's fruits or grains, belongs to God. And so we have a ritual called Pidyon Haben for the firstborn of a family, firstborn male, that the Kohen comes and we do a little ritual redeeming the son from the Kohen and giving the son back to the parents. Which is very interesting. But the money that was collected from Bnei Yisrael is given to Aharon and his family so that they can maintain. Aharon and his sons are commanded that they are to dismantle and prepare the Mishkan for movement from place to place, and that all objects are to be covered with dolphin skins or special cloth. Now, the word for dolphin skin is an interesting word. Tichashim, and it's not a dolphin skin. Where they came up with that idea, I don't know. Probably because whatever they were using was kind of iridescent, where it reflected light a little bit, and you could see it maybe made pretty colors on it. The best guess is that it was dyed sheep or goat leather, not dolphin skin, because it's hard to find dolphins in the middle of the wilderness. And then we get some comments about the Kohathites, who are descendants of Kohath, one of Levi's 3 sons. And between the ages of 30 and 50, they're assigned to lift and carry the Mishkan parts from place to place. All right? They do the manual labor. They do the heavy lifting. And they're not to be present when it's assembled or disassembled, lest they want to help. Right? So Aharon and his sons, they dismantle it and prepare it for movement. And the Kohites, between the ages of 30 and 50, they carry it from place to place. They're the schleppers, as it were, but they don't get to put it together or take it apart. And so basically this part of the Torah, this opening parsha, is a little bit about housekeeping, right? We get a number of men who can fight in the army. We get several numbers of people for various things. The Levites, the firstborn of Israel. We get a statement about the Kohites. And so this first parsha is kind of getting us back up to speed, letting us know what's been going on in the month that we've been away from the narrative. Well, a little bit more than a month, but according to the book of Bamidbar, it's only a month from the end of Shemot to the beginning of this book. Okay, and that's your Torah portion in a nutshell. Not a lot of action, not a lot of drama, some numbers, and a little bit of housekeeping. All right, Sunday night. Sunday. My favorite. Well, I like all of the holidays. I don't know if I like them equally, though. I like them all. I love Sukkot because it takes place in the autumn. But I really like Shavuot. And Shavuot begins this Sunday evening. And it's kind of, I've often joked that it's kind of like the redheaded stepchild of the holidays. Because Pesach gets a week, Sukkot gets a week, and Shavuot gets a day, 2 days in the diaspora. And it's a really beautiful festival. And it goes by 3 names. Right? We have 3 names for Passover. We have 3 names for Shavuot. It's Chag HaShavuot, the Festival of Weeks, because it's 7 weeks after Passover. It's Chag HaBikurim, the Festival of First Fruits, because this is when the first grain harvest takes place. And it's also known as Chag HaKatzir, a harvest festival, right? Because it's the first harvest of the year. The last harvest takes place on Sukkot, but the first harvest takes place on Shavuot. And as you can guess by these names, it's an agricultural festival. Late spring, after the harvest of the new wheat. That's Shavuot. And there was a special temple sacrifice that went with this as well. And it's one of the Shalosh Regalim. It's one of the 3 major festivals, although you wouldn't think so because it only gets 1 day in the Torah. It takes place on the 6th of Sivan, always on that date, but a different day of the week. All right, and it's called an Natsaret. Now we get Natsaret in relation to Shmini Atsaret, which is an extra day added on to Sukkot, almost like bringing Sukkot really to a formal close. And so there are rabbis who argue that because it's called Atzeret, that it's linked to Pesach, and in a way, Shavuot is the end of Pesach, because on the second night of Pesach, we start to count the Omer, which we count for 49 days, and then at the end of that, it's 7 weeks, and the day after that is Shavuot on the 50th day, and so it really is an end to what we started on Passover. So it really is maybe a Natsaret. But the Torah itself, it's an agricultural festival. Later on, the rabbis are going to associate it with the revelation of the Torah at Mount Sinai. But in the Torah, it is an agricultural festival. And the rabbis, because they wanted to give, as they started to give more oomph to these festivals, right? Passover was the beginning of spring festival. And Sukkot is the end of the harvest festival. And Shavuot is the first fruit festival. And they were all tied in agriculturally. But then we started to give them spiritual meanings, right? When we stopped being such an agricultural people. So Pesach was about Yetziat Mitzrayim and freedom. Sukkot is about the fragility of life and how our ancestors lived in boots when they were in the Midbar, in the wilderness. And so they had to come up with something for Shavuot. And what they did is they did some rabbinic math, and they calculated that the agricultural events and the events that took place on Mount Sinai coincided. And so now we celebrate the giving of the Torah on Shavuot. And one of the big questions, not just in the Reform and conservative movements, is it 1 or 2 days? We don't know, right? We celebrate it. Conservative Jews celebrate 2 days. In Israel, they only celebrate 1 day. And again, the rabbis come in and they say, well, it was always 2 days. And so they offer proof is in the Amidah, when we talk about Shavuot, we call it Zman Matan Toratenu, the time of the giving of our Torah. And it's not called Yom Matan Toratenu, the day of the giving of the Torah. So because it's this ambiguous Zman, this time, the rabbis say, well, that if it was only 1 day, they would have used Yom. And so they use Zman to say that it's more than 1 day. I don't know. You can agree with the rabbis. You can disagree with them. That's how it is. There are a number of really nice minhagim. Minhagim are customs that go with Shavuot. An all-night study, the Tikkun Le'el Shavuot. And we're going to have ours on Sunday night. I don't know if we'll go all night. I've gone all night a couple of times, and it's really, really wonderful to study with a group of people all night and to jump around from different things. But Sunday night, we're going to study something that I really love, and I've done a lot of research, and I hope that you'll find it interesting. Confirmation takes place on Shavuot, and that was a 19th century Reform movement custom. Right after bar mitzvah, bat mitzvah, the children would study some more, and then on confirmation on Shavuot, we read the Aseret HaDibrot, we read the 10 Commandments, although there's some argument about that. We read Megillat Ruth, we read the story of Ruth, and a couple of reasons why. Well, the story of Ruth takes place in the spring. She's an ancestor of David HaMelech, of King David, who was born and who dies on Shavuot. And it's about Ruth's loyalty to the Torah. And so it's a nice Megillah to read. And kreplach are eaten. And if you don't have kreplach, that's okay. Dairy foods. Shavuot is all about the cheesecake and the blintzes and the ice cream and the chocolate, and whatever dairy food you can come up with. And there are a couple of reasons that are given for that. One, it's from the Shir HaShirim, the Song of Songs, where it says, honey and milk under your lips, so that the Torah should always be sweet. Right? So there's that. In Exodus 23:19, where we start learning about Shavuot, it says, the first of your first fruits of your land you shall bring to the house of the Lord your God. And then right after it is this weirdly placed verse, you shall not boil a kid in its mother's milk. And so what the rabbis say is, well, look, it's talking about boiling a kid in its mother's milk. Obviously, it's saying don't eat meat, but eat dairy. And so we eat dairy. And there's a legend that when Israel returned from Mount Sinai, they didn't have time to prepare a meat meal. And so they ate dairy. Whatever the reason, it's all about the cheesecake. Have cheesecake, have ice cream, join us for the study session, bring your cheesecake and your ice cream. and it'll be a great evening. But Shavuot is a wonderful holiday, and I look forward to spending it with you this year. Shabbat Shalom and good Shabbos. All right, it is Kiddush time. Kiddush time as we start to close out our service. Vayehi erev vayehi vocher yom hashishi vayechulu hashamayim v'haaretz v'chol tzivam vayechal Elohim bayom hashvi melachto asher asa vayishbot bayom hashvi mikol melachto asher asa vayevarech Elohim et yom hashvi Vayikadesh oto kivo shavat mikol melachto asher bara Elohim la'asot. Savri. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech olam borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech olam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu v'shabbat kodsho bi'ahava uvratzon hinchilanu zikaron lema'aseh bereshit ki hu yom techila lamikra'e kodesh zecher letziat mitzrayim ki vanu v'acharta Yotanu kidashta mikol ha'amim v'shabbat kodshecha be'ahava uvratzon hinchaltanu baruch atah Adonai mekadesh haShabbat. All right, it is time to count the Omer. And last night, believe it or not, was the 47th day of the Omer. Yesterday was 47. Hinani muchan u'mizuman l'kayem mitzvat aseh shel sfirat ha'omer kamo shekatuv b'torah usfartem lachem mimocharat haShabbat miyom haviichem et omer ha'tenufa sheva shabbatot temimot tihiena Ad mimocharat haShabbat hashvi'i tisberu chamishim yom. I am ready to fulfill the mitzvah of counting the Omer, as it is ordained in the Torah. You shall count from the eve of the second day of Pesach, when an Omer of grain is to be brought as an offering, 7 complete weeks. The day after the 7th week of your counting will make 50 days. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu al sfirat ha'omer. Hayom shmona v'arba'im yom shehem shisha shavuot v'shisha yamim la'omer. Today is the 48th day of the Omer, making, 6 weeks and 6 days of the Omer. All right. We'll close out with Aleinu, page 282. Aleinu l'shabeach ladon hakol lateit gedula liotzer breshit shelo asanu k'goyei haratzot v'lo hosamanu k'mishpachot hadam shelo sam chelkeinu kahem v'gohor aleinu kechol hamonam va'anachnu kori u'mishtachavim u'modim lifnei melech Malchei Hamlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu Shehu Notei Shamayim V'Yoser Haaretz U'Moshav Yekaro B'Shamayim Mimal U'Shchinatu Zo V'Govhei Meromim U'Eloheinu Ein Od Em Hashem et Malkeinu efes ulato, kakatu v'torato, v'yadat hayam v'hashebota, elevavecha, ki Adonai hu Elohim, bashamayim mimah, v'al haaretz, mitachat ein od. Kakatu b'toratecha, Adonai yimloch le'olam va'ed, v'ne'emar, v'haya Adonai, lamelech al kol ha'aretz, bayom hahu, yihyeh Adonai echad, u'shemo echad. This week we observed the following yahrzeits: Joseph Fish, father of Francis and Jackie; Helen Krasnow, mother of Michael; Faye Muffson, Maury's mother; Ruth Davis; Judge Michael E. Gersten, friend or relative of Ron Poland; Selma Mazo Jacobson, Steve's mother, Paul's grandmother; Dora Hermanson Mann, May Lazarus's relative; Jim Ambergy, Judy Lundy's brother; Robert Bloom, father of Rick McLaughlin; Bessie Glick Cohen, wife of Izzy, mother of Nancy, David's aunt; Thelma Cohen, wife of Bernie; Edward Island, husband of Evelyn, father of Peter; Myron J. Katz, Jerry Katz's brother, Andy and Jesse's youngest son; Abraham Isaac Poland, Joan Weisberg's grandfather; Muriel Chase, Max Necken's sister, daughter of Isidore and Julia; Neo Reuben Monroe, Miranda's father; Charlotte Angel; Norma Levine Lemons, wife of Sheldon, Regina Levine's mother; Ralph Leon Macinter, son of Saul and Jenny, Gazella's husband, father of Lois, Jean, and Edgar; Norman Stone, friend of Samuel Kaplan; Sarah Malmut, mother of Ben, Esther, Anne, Saul, and Seymour. May their souls be bound up in the bond of life eternal. May their memories be a blessing to us always, and may they all rest in peace. Mourner's Kaddish is found on page 294. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei rabba, bi'alma divrach hirute v'yamlik malchute, b'chayechon v'yomechon uv'chaye dechol beit Yisrael, ba'agala uv'izman kariv v'imru amen. Yehe shmei rabba mevorach li'olam lomei almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh. V'yithadar v'yitaleh v'yithalal shmei dekudisha brichu. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata. Tushbachata v'nechamata da'amiram be'alma v'imru amen. Yehe shlama rabba min shmaya. V'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav. Hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. All right, friends, that is just about the service. I have a couple of quick announcements. Lots going on in the next couple of days. So tomorrow morning, services at 10 a.m. for Shabbat, and then Sunday morning at 9. Sunday evening at 7, and it's listed 7 to 9. We might go a little bit longer. It's our Tikkun Le'el Shavuot, and we'll be studying one of, I think, the most interesting stories in the Torah, the binding of Isaac, Akedat Yitzchak. And tune in. You have the Zoom link for that. It'll be a discussion, and I promise you, I absolutely promise you, you will learn something that you didn't know before. Then Monday morning and Tuesday morning at 10 a.m., we're going to have Shavuot Services. And you should have gotten the Siddur emailed, but if you didn't and you have the PDF of the one that we used for Passover, the only difference is that you're going to be missing a couple of Psalms. So if you have that one, use that one. That's Monday and Tuesday at 10. And Tuesday will include the memorial service, Yizkor. So, and then after Shavuot, it's a straight line to the high holidays. We have Tisha B'Av in the summer, but that's the only major observance that takes place between the end of Shavuot and the high holidays. So, and then Wednesday night, get your Yiddish on with the Yiddish choir. No deep dive into Bereshit this week because, alas, it is Shavuot. And so read up on your own, and we'll pick up with that next week. And then, that's it. Big things happening for Shavuot. And so look forward to seeing everybody there for Shavuot. And tonight, because I'm here by myself, I want to close out with Yigdal. And most of the verses you can find on page 324. Yigdal Elohim Chai v'yishtahabach Nimsa v'yehein eitel mitziuto Echad v'yein yachid keyichudo Ne'lam v'gam ein sof liachduto Ein lo demuta guf v'yehein no guf Lo na'aroch elav kedushato Kadmon l'chol davar asher nivra Rishon v'yein reshit l'reshito Hino Adon Olam v'chol notzar Yoreh gedulato u'malchuto Shefa nevuato netano El anshe segulato v'tifarto Lo kam b'Yisrael kemo she'od Navi u'mahabit et munato Torah temet natan li ahamoel Al yad nevi'o neman beito Lo yachalif ha'el v'lo yamir dato Li'ohol lahamim lezulato Tzofeh v'yodea sitarenu Amabit l'sof davar bekadmato Gomer li'ish chesed kemihifalo Noten rasha ra kirishato Yishlak yiketz yamin meshichenu Lifdot mechake ketz yeshuato Meitim yichayel berov hasto Baruch adeh ad shem tihilato Meitim yichayel berov hasto Baruch adeh ad shem tehilato. All right, friends, let's see who's visiting and what they have to say. We have Jenny Bro, Shabbat Shalom, and Chag Sameach Shavuot. Right back at you, Jenny. Judy Lenz, Shabbat Shalom, everyone, and be well. Thank you, Judy. Same to you. Mary Lee Glazer and Herman Glazer wish everyone a good Shabbat and peace to all. Amen, amen, amen. And Cliff Wanamaker, Shabbat Shalom, everyone, from Rabbi's mom and Cliff. Give a shout out to those in Brooklyn, Patty Ann and Aaron and Melanie. And want to wish you all Shabbat Shalom and an early Chag Sameach. Hope to see you all soon. And be safe out there. Shabbat Shalom and good Shabbos.